Hi, I'm Robert Height, President and CEO of the Glendale Chamber of Commerce, and today I'm joined here with Yvonne Connect, our Public Policy Chair for the Glendale Chamber, as well as a board member, and Councilmember Lauren Tolmachoff. Good morning, welcome ladies.
Good morning, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, what we wanted to do as a chamber was take a few moments and sit down with Councilmember Tolmachoff. As many of you know, she is up for re-election. She is a current council member. Our chamber has endorsed Lauren in the past, and not having a challenger, we're fortunate to have such a good working relationship with her that we just wanted to take a few minutes and sit down and ask a few questions. So I'm going to kick it off, Lauren, with the toughest question we might have of the morning, which would be, now having been a council member going into what would be your third term, what would you say in the first two terms is your biggest aha moment as a council member? From going from private citizen to now elected official.
Probably the biggest aha moment was just how complicated running a city actually is, and how many moving parts and you know, so many things that you need to pay attention to. I'm a very detail-oriented person, so in the beginning there's so much to learn. I mean, it's, you know, we have water and solid waste and, you know, streets and actually trying to focus as you know, both of you know, I ran initially as an angry citizen. So, I mean, I try to view everything that we do from a perspective of somebody who's outside of City Hall and city government. How would a resident feel about this issue? So, but I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces. Some days you feel like you're playing whack-a-mole, where you like took care of this and now there's this over here. So that probably, and you also to worry about unintended consequences.
That's a good point.
You know, you think you're solving one problem, but you have to really think it through to make sure that you're not creating another issue somewhere else or for somebody else. So.
Good thought. Just a follow-up, and then I know Yvonne will go to the next question, but I would say, speaking for the chamber and our members, because we hear it a lot, that you actually do ask the questions that they want to know. So I commend you for that, because they may not be the most popular questions. Yvonne is a former council member, so she knows it as well, but I think we love the fact as a chamber that you ask those questions that the everyday person at their home or their business wants to know. So thank you for that.
That's my pleasure.
I agree, most definitely. What do you hope to accomplish now that you've been here for 2 terms? In your third term, what are you looking to accomplish?
There's quite a bit. I mean, I really want to hold the line on spending. I mean, that's just who I am as an elected official now, but as a person, just to show fiscal restraint. I mean, the city's, you know, fortunate at the moment, and I want to stress at the moment, to be, you know, generating a lot of revenue because of the growth and things happening out in the, you know, where we're annexing and a lot of industrial. But I mean, eventually that's all going to be finished, and the money's not going to continue to keep rolling in. We're likely, probably, hopefully not, but heading into a recession. So, you know, to really not be, you know, like payday rich is what my dad used to say. It's just because you got your paycheck doesn't mean you're rich. You know, you got to plan for the future, and really, I'm really a kind of a tight one when it comes to the city spending. You know, we really need to be prepared so that in the event of a downturn, you know, we're in decent shape to not have to start cutting services or raising taxes or doing things that I would not want to have to do for the, you know, it would hurt the businesses, it would hurt the residents. The idea is to be able to continue to provide the services that we're providing, planning into the future, and have enough reserves that we're not, you know, like I said, payday rich, saying, oh, we've got all this money now, we need to spend it all right now.
That's a good point.
Very true.
Very true. So you touched on, which I love, so you're kind of leading into the first question. And by the way, for those of you watching, we didn't send these over to the council member because we felt that she could just be able to answer these just naturally. So Yvonne and I worked through these, but you know, you touched on issues, and as a council member, you're dealing with one issue, and then you hope it doesn't cause another issue. So just a couple, and I'll read you the question that we have. with many issues facing our community and many others across the nation, such as affordable housing, which you know all too well with your line of work, inflation, homelessness, water security. What do you feel the role as a council member is for you as these issues face our city? What is it that you do related to those type of issues that are, it's not necessarily the budget per se, these could impact the budget, but these are sometimes those heartfelt where it pulls at the heartstrings. And so what would you say your role is related to those?
I think, first of all, listening, asking questions and listening, trying to learn as much about a specific issue as you can before you roll right into decision making. Because these are all very complicated issues. Affordable housing, the city does play a role in providing affordable housing, but the city, any city by itself is never going to be able to solve the affordable housing issue. It's going to take, lots of partners to be able to solve the affordable housing issue. Like I said, we do play a role, and we are becoming more and more, I think, open to using, working with companies that are, there's quite a few of them out there that do, affordable projects, and they need tax credits, they need assistance to be able to get those off the ground. And we just did our first one, at least since I've been here, where we worked together with them to help them get their, we postponed, we were really accommodating because we understand the importance of affordable housing. Same with homelessness. It's not an issue that, you can, one entity is going to be able to address. It's going to take a community. There's a lot of, the affordable housing is one part of it. Another part of it is law enforcement. There's a certain percentage of the homeless population that does not want to be connected to services, that does not want to be housed. If these people continue to break laws, such as, homelessness in itself is, and not that I don't want to sound that I'm not empathetic to the homeless people, but there is this, and depending on who you talk to, somewhere between 20 and 30% of the people that are on our streets want to stay on the street. That's what they want. Yeah, so that's where I feel anyway, the law enforcement part of it comes in. That we have to be a little more strict with and allow our police department to enforce the laws that we already have. That being, those homeless people continue to break. So, but I think the most important part of my answer is that, ask a lot of questions. And I know, as you said earlier, sometimes people don't like the fact that I ask a lot of questions, but there's all these issues are so complicated, and you have to make sure that, like you said, we don't, and I said the same thing, you don't try to solve a problem and then create a whole nother set of problems by solving this problem over here. Now you've got 3 over here. So it takes a little, probably the most difficult thing for me is the amount of patience that it takes to try to get to where you want to go, because I'm used to, just getting things done. And, as a realtor, I run my own business basically. I'm an independent contractor. I can just decide to do this or that. And when you're working inside city government, that's not how it goes. There's a lot of, you've got to kind of, get the wheels going before you can actually start moving in a certain direction. I
think you just hit on a good point for those of our businesses and members out there. Like you just said, they make a decision and they go. They see that and as a path forward and they go. And then within government, there's a lot of compromise, there's a lot of conversation, and sometimes it seems like a very slow-moving beast. Of working on the issue, whereas in private sector, they just make decisions and sometimes have to readjust during course. But, one thing I think, and Yvonne and I can both agree, we hear a lot about workforce issues. And so the fact that the city worked on the affordable housing project, congratulations, and we commend that. Hopefully City Council and Economic Development will find other opportunities that we can work for. And I think the challenge, as you mentioned, for homeless, certainly is that balancing act between those that need some support and services and then those who have made a conscious choice to be homeless, and then working through whatever mechanisms you can, as you mentioned, law enforcement and other things to kind of curtail that, because that's, I think, what we hear is it's not a crime to be homeless, and certainly people do fall on hard times, but the ones that we get at the chamber more often are the ones who are causing a little bit of headache for our business owners or property owners. And so it's nice to know that you as a council member are monitoring that to address those issues. So thank you.
Well, I'll go next, and I want to thank you as a chamber member for many, many years and as a board member for your participation with the chamber. We do really appreciate it, and we are wondering how in the future maybe we can connect more and build even more of a relationship with you.
I think, well, when I first ran for office, the city had pretty much no relationship with the chamber. Or maybe not no relationship, but didn't have a good,
Limited.
limited and didn't have a really good rapport, working relationship. I think it's a natural partnership that, the businesses are the lifeblood of our city, and they provide the revenue that drives the bus that, provides all the services to the residents of the city. So it should be a really big priority of all of the elected officials and the city leadership to be a good partner with the chamber and to support the business community. Now supporting to me doesn't necessarily mean attending every event, because you all have a lot of events. So, but I think that
You're telling us.
but I think the support is to show up to the events that I can, but also for you to know that Robert can pick up the phone and call me with a problem anytime. And I'm going to work with you to try to resolve that problem. We've done that I don't know how many times, and Yvonne knows that, and I think your board knows that too. That I want to be a resource to the business community, and I think that's really what the support is. That they know that they can rely on you to be a support to the business community, and that you're approachable anytime, and that you're going to work. I've worked with many of your members on trying to resolve issues that they've had. And I think that, and like I said, the events are fun. I love going to the events, but you guys have a lot of events. But I hope your members, and if they don't know that they're listening now, that I want to be a resource, and to feel free to reach out to me anytime, either through Robert or directly through me to assist you if you have an issue with the city.
No, thank you for that. It's true. We have to work together. I think having a great partnership is important. And it kind of leads into our next question. While the chamber and city won't always agree and be in the same lane of an issue or topic, and maybe sometimes disagree, what would you say to the members in the business community, is the best path forward when we have that kind of bump in the road? So if the chamber has this viewpoint and the city kind of has this viewpoint, how do you as a council member balance that out? Because you're obviously an elected official and you're working through with the city departments and sometimes have more knowledge than the average business or your citizen. Yet these folks that we work with and work, are passionate about this and we're here, and so then we have divide. And so it's really, how do you as a council member balance that information? Because I think we've had situations where you have a little bit more knowledge sometimes, of where things are at than we do on the outside world, and then it becomes a struggle of, not necessarily bickering, but how do we work, compromise and balance to keep everyone happy and copacetic?
I think in any relationship, communication. It has to start with communication. And not communication. I know a lot of people think communication just means talking, but communication also means listening. And that listening to, trying to understand what the issue is, and understand if you and I disagree on how to get to a resolution on an issue, but to listen to what your viewpoints are. That maybe there's some reason why maybe there was something that I hadn't even thought about from somebody else's perspective. So communication doesn't mean talking to you or you. It means let's all talk and all listen to each other and figure out why are you coming from it that angle, and maybe is there something I should know about your opinion of the issue that I hadn't even occurred to me. So
that's a good point. One thing I'll say, I know Yvonne's going to have a question before we'll wrap up with the final question for Lauren, but for those of you that are watching and may not know, this is not it's not a 9-to-5 job. This is more of a 24/7 job in the sense. Not that Lauren doesn't get to sleep and have a day off, but there's been many times it's on the weekends or late in the evening or early mornings that we have not had the ability to connect during the workday, but we have connected to work through an issue that's come up. And I do want our members to know that there's been multiple times over the years that businesses just like yourself who are watching this have had an issue or concern, not all bad, but just kind of want some more information. And every time that that we reached out to Councilmember Tolmachoff. She has actively engaged, worked with us, helping that business owner understand. So thank you for that, because it's a two-way street, and most of our members do what they do best. They provide an amazing service and product, and they don't set out to break rules in government or not follow policy or procedures, but sometimes they don't quite know it if they, there's that friction there. So I do want our members to know that we've had a great rapport with you and that you've always stepped up to provide them assistance. So I know Yvonne had another question here.
Could I interject something right there too?
Absolutely.
Because I know it's something that Yvonne and I did together as we served on the business subcommittee. So, it's a goal, it's an ongoing, it's a work in progress, but to try to cut through some of the red tape, and I mean, because I'm sure as a business, and I know this now, I mean, even more than I did before I got elected, is sometimes the government makes things way more complicated than they need to. Just, well, maybe even more than sometimes. So, I mean, we spent 3 years trying to, go through code and go through all, to try to streamline, how the way a business would interact with City Hall, because it is it's overwhelming and complicated, and there's, as I said, I mean, it's, you as a business, you want to get a liquor license for a special event, for example. I mean, you would think it'd be really, really easy, but it can become quite complicated, and it shouldn't be complicated.
As I know.
So, right, as Yvonne well knows. So, but things like that we still have a long way to go, I think, as a city, to try to make things less complicated, even though the business subcommittee concluded their work. I mean, we still need to be, business friendly. I mean, it's so important to be business friendly and streamline every single process that we require somebody to do to get a special permit for a special event or a liquor license or anything like that, or even just a regular business license. It should be super, super simple and easy, that you're not, sent over here, then sent over here, then sent over there. Now you got to go back over here. So I really, we've made progress. I think we've made progress, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Well, and I don't know anyone who wakes up in the middle of the night one day and says, I'm going to become an elected official. So my hat and our chamber hat here goes off to you, because we're in a divided world. These are bipartisan seats. It's not Republican, Democrat. It's about serving a community, and you're doing that. You've done that now for a number of years, and now you're going to keep going forward. So it's a divided world. So my hat goes off to all elected officials, because whether or not everyone agrees with you all the time, it's a tough job. You've got essentially many, many bosses, of the community and people out there, if you will. So again, we thank you for that. I know Yvonne has another question there that most people may not know the answer to this. So this is probably the toughest question.
This is true. However, and I want to make a comment before too, is a lot of people, like when I ran for office, I was a business person, and business people run for office thinking they can change government. It's a totally apples and oranges thing. You don't change government. Government is not run like a business. We wish it was, but there's so much regulation and all kinds of things that government has to adhere to that it isn't. So it's trying to, and I think, Lauren, you do a great job of trying to put the business hat on and look at it, but you also know that there's certain things that government cannot do.
It's the influence and the balance.
Right,
Like you said, business can't change that with government, but being able to have the conversations, to have the dialogue, creates that influence of what the impacts are to business, and then finding the balance and the solution. So it's a good point.
Well, my question is, so many people, and I'm sure ask you, but they've asked me, well, what does the council do? When they say you're a council member, I have people say, well, what is that? What do you do? So what would you say your job description is?
The toughest question, right?
Basically, the council we're the policy makers for the city, and we set policy, and policy really is guides a lot of what happens in the city. I mean, there's a lot of other people that make decisions, within the city government, but the way it's supposed to work is that the city council sets the policy, and the budget is a policy document, in my opinion. I mean, the budget is, I think, the most important thing that we do, but between the budget affects every single resident, but even more than that is, I think really focusing on looking at it, trying to look at every issue from somebody who's outside of City Hall and outside of city government, who is a regular person, just an angry citizen is how I started out, to say, well, if I wasn't on the city council, how would I feel about this? I try to look at things that way and ask questions from, as you said, from a perspective of somebody who really wants to understand the issue and make sure that the residents understand the issue. But the council really, as you know, we set the policy. It's a challenge because a lot of people want to tell you what they think the policy should be. And it's also trying not to ruffle feathers and to work together with people. Everybody's got their own idea of how, there's 7 of us. I joke sometimes it's like trying to herd cats. I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. But you have to be able to be effective communicator, because if you really feel strongly about something, you've got to get 3 more people on board with you to actually move that forward. So, no one of us can do anything by ourselves when it comes to policy. We need 4. So.
Well, that's another thing too. I don't think people understand. We're not a strong mayor form of government. We have a mayor and a council, but everybody has an equal vote. So it's not, and it's also a manager council form of government. So we have a city manager that runs the city.
Mm-hmm.
The council does not run the city.
Right.
They set policy but the city manager runs the city.
Right, and that becomes a little bit complicated too, because the council, none of us have the ability to direct any staff member to do anything other than the city manager, the city attorney, the city clerk, and the presiding judge. And even then, it takes 4 of us to direct that person to do anything. So
that's true.
It's complicated, but I think that's also part of being a good communicator and being, I think, coming from a good place. And I know that sounds really cliche, but coming from a good place where you have a good relationship. And I've tried really hard. This has been the same council for the most part that we've had. We had a few seats change, but to have a good relationship with every single person on that council, so that when I do ask for support on an issue, that they will first of all listen to me and be open to hearing me, and that they know that I'm coming from a good place, and that I'm not, because you can't just say, well, I think the policy should be this, and okay, what are we doing next? That's not how it works at all. You've got to get 4 people on board to move any policy forward.
Well, I think you've done a great job with that too. From outside, from a chamber perspective, from a former councilman, you've done a great job. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your patience, Yvonne. You told me, kept saying, just wait till you get on the council, because it really does seem so simple when you're standing on the outside looking in, and then once you get in there, you understand how complicated it really, really is to get things done. But I'm relentless. I don't give up very easy. So, and on every single issue, there's an opposite opinion to pretty much every single issue that you.
It's the world we live in
exactly.
today.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Even in our own families, it's the same thing. Where are you going to go eat? No one can make a decision.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a very, very highly flammable political times that we're living in too. So you've got to really, be careful and try, like you said, it's a nonpartisan job. But my perspective that I come from things is especially when it comes to, I'm a fiscal conservative. When it comes to people's personal lives, I'm totally moderate. You've got to try to work with people who, don't think the same way you do either, and get along with them and not disrespect their opinions either, whatever their opinions are.
Well, we got 2 more questions. I want to close out with the last one, but I guess the question for the chamber is there any way that you feel that we can work better or stronger with you? Is there anything you'd like to see from us as a chamber? That you would from us as a chamber? What can we do to support you better?
I think the chamber's been really supportive of me, and I know we sat down and talked when I was running in 2014, and at that time the chamber and the city really weren't working together really on any issues. And not long after I got elected, we had quite a few issues arise where we rolled up our sleeves and said, okay, how are we gonna work together to so I would just say just to continue to communicate with me. The worst thing that can happen is when communication stops, and then people think that they're well, you haven't talked to me, and or you have, so that to keep the lines of communication open. And if you think there's a problem, pick up the phone anybody, your membership, your board of directors, anybody, contact me. I'm easy to reach. And
Very
then
accessible.
don't let the lines of communication, just continue to keep the communication, even if it's dissatisfaction, especially actually if it's dissatisfaction with something that the city's doing. I want to know about it. Just don't assume that I may even know about the issue, because I may not. I mean, a lot of times I probably get maybe more information from the chamber than I do from City Hall a lot of the time. So, don't ever assume that I may know. If there's an issue and you're having a problem, please let me know, because I may not even know about it. It's happened many times over the last 8 years.
No, thank you. Thanks.
Well, as we're wrapping up, is there anything that you would like to say, or any questions, anything?
Anything we haven't asked you, you want our members, the community to know?
I just want to let the business community and your members know that it's unbelievable privilege to serve the city of Glendale. I had no idea that this would light a fire inside me that it did, to serve. It's really, and the more you serve, the more you see that there's, I honestly had not anticipated running for a third term, but there's still a lot going on that I want to be a voice in, and so I don't know, where you get to where I mean, Yvonne hasn't been in office for I don't know how many years, and she's still a voice. So I don't think that you just actually end up saying, peace out, everybody. I'm done.
Well, some do, but not everybody.
But I mean, it really is something that lit a fire inside me to serve this community. I really love Glendale. It's just such a fantastic place. And there's a lot going on over this next few years. Been getting a lot of emails about Murphy Park, the remodel of City Hall. I want to, make sure that we don't, get payday rich, I've been advocating for doing something about the appearance of City Hall since I first was elected. And I mean, I think it's important, because how can we expect anybody to invest in our downtown if we're not even going to invest in, have a building? I mean, it's needed paint for I don't know how many years. I've objected to the price tag from the very beginning. I mean, we started out at I think $27 or $28 million. It's gone up quite a bit. So, I'm just going to stick with my own core beliefs are, fiscal restraint. There's going to come a day when money's not pouring into the city, and we need to be prepared for that, because we're still going to have to provide services. And back to the affordable housing and other things, we have to still be flexible enough to be able to help some of these developers that need, a little bit of assistance from the city to be able to make some of these projects work. So we need to be financially flexible enough to be able to participate in some of that, to solve some of these problems that are, really burdening. If there's no workforce housing, then how does the business hire the servers and the bartenders? And so I mean, like I said, it's the whack-a-mole thing where you think, well, okay, well, but if the businesses can't staff their businesses, then you've got another whole problem.
That's right.
So I mean, these problems are deep and complicated, but they're worth taking the time and the commitment to try to get some answers.
Well,
Thank you very
great.
much.
You're welcome.
We appreciate you being here and your time, and
My pleasure.
we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thanks for being nice to me.
Always be nice.
So what we'll say to our members is we hope that you will join the Glendale Chamber of Commerce in supporting Councilmember Lauren Tolmachoff in her re-election to council member for the city of Glendale. With that, we thank you for joining in, and have a great day.